up here. Today we have the opportunity to hear from the Kids Center, which was founded more than 30 years ago. And if you might have one of these on your table, it's their open house that's going to be coming up. So be sure to look at some of the stuff that they put out on your table. The Kids Center is a nationally accredited children's advocacy center where they receive referrals from different partners in the community like law enforcement, DHS, and they basically bring the kids in and they do a full head-to-toe evaluation on them. They do forensic family interviews, so just really making sure that they're looking out for the kids in our community. And today we have Rachel, who has been with the Prevention Education Manager for over 7 years. She went to Eastern New Mexico, so nobody can be upset if she's a duck or a beaver. And she studied mental health counseling. So, Rachel, if you could come up.
Well, thank you all for having me. Just so I have kind of a base of what you guys are aware of. Who has heard of Kids Center, knows what it is? Okay. You're like, I read it just now. Yeah, so a couple of things that you have on your table. We always like to give our annual report so you can kind of see the ins and outs. If you like numbers, enjoy that. I don't. So I let that happen through my development team, our finance team. We have our brochure that we hand out at all of our tablings, at all of our events. And yeah, we are celebrating 30 years of being present in the community. So tomorrow we have an open house from 2 to 6. You're going to be able to kind of meet a lot of our team members, everyone that's on the eval team. You'll be able to meet our facility dog, O'Malley. We got him not this July, but last July. And he is a black lab. He serves as basically like a security blanket, a little comfort blanket for the kiddos that come in for these evaluations. He's been a great addition to our Kids Center family. We have O'Malley happy hours, and so he gets to run the building when all the kids are gone, and it's been great for the kids, it's been great for the staff. But yeah, so Kids Center is what's called a Children's Advocacy Center. We exist so that any child that is suspected of experiencing any type of abuse can come for what's called a child abuse evaluation. As Amber was saying, we have referral partners, DHS, law enforcement, mental health providers, and medical providers. And those are the individuals that are kind of our first responders, our first kind of point of contact, in addition to mainly educators. And so educators are also the other front line that have the most contact with kids, especially during the school year. They're with them more waking hours than they are at home. So we will receive those referrals. The kids will come in for a child abuse evaluation, forensic interview, a medical exam, both of which the child has complete autonomy about how that goes. So if they're in that interview and they don't feel comfortable answering a question we ask them, we won't force them. If there is a portion of the medical exam or the medical exam in its entirety that they don't feel comfortable participating in, we would never force them to do that. We know that they are often coming from a space where their voice and their choice was taken away, and so we want to really be that first step on that road to healing for them. When a child comes in, whether it's with their non-offending caregiver or with a caseworker, they are met by their family advocate. The family advocate connects with them before they even step foot into our office. And so they have already made this connection with them. They're already providing them support and even resources prior to them even coming for the evaluation. The advocate will stay connected with that child, with that family, until they deem it unnecessary. So we might have an advocate call into a follow-up after an evaluation 2 months down the road. And the family might be in a really good place, and they can say, you know what, we're doing great. Thanks, so much for the assistance and for letting us either get appointments done or whatever the advocate helped them with. Sometimes they're on for 1.5 to 2 years on that caseload. It just really depends on the situation. Our advocates are there to help with maybe signing them up for OHP, because if the alleged is the main breadwinner in the family, they might hold all the insurance under their name. And if something needs to happen, they need to have insurance for themselves. We connect them to services like WIC. We sometimes will get them connected to a hotel stay for a little bit. It really just depends on what is happening in that child and that family's life. What's really great about the advocates is that you all have access to them. Because if you have kids in your life, whether they are related to you or not, we always have these situations where we get phone calls or we get walk-ins and there's just a concern about a kid and they don't know if it's reportable or what resources they can provide a kid. And so the advocates are there to not only assist those that come in, but they're able to assist any questions that the community has. The other kind of aspect is that we have therapists that are Kids Center staff. They're on site each and every day, and they are able to not only connect with the individual that is there for the evaluation, because the medical exam is helping with the physical body. We want to make sure that the mental health is also taken care of as well. And they're there to connect with the kid that's there for the evaluation, but then also the non-offending caregiver, and if any siblings are present. So if a sibling comes in, because we understand that this type of trauma just doesn't affect that individual, it affects the family, it affects everyone that they have contact with. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence by making sure that they have a place to process in a safe way. Similar to the advocates, you all have access to our therapists as well. So if you have a concern about how kids are interacting with each other and you don't know if their behaviors are appropriate developmentally or not, you can call and talk to our therapist of the day. And they're able to kind of give you some education on the phone. They're able to say, actually, that's developmentally appropriate, and here's some things that you can look out for if you're still concerned about the behaviors that they're exhibiting. So yes, we serve our families that come in, but we definitely serve the community. My job is prevention. So I really try and support that evaluation team because they hear the stories, they're with the families, and I usually just say, can I get you some chocolate? Can I get you some coffee? What can I do? Because then I get to come out and have fun and talk to people in the community and give them education and bring awareness. That's my job. So we have about 4 kind of cornerstone trainings that we provide. Everything from our Darkness to Light training, which was the first training that we introduced in the community back in 2005, and that has been our mainstay training. It is the child sexual abuse prevention training. The reason why we focus so heavily on preventing child sexual abuse is because often that is the referral that we receive the most. So last year in 2023, we had 467 evals come through our Kids Center, and just about 195 were for sexual abuse. That is a lot, and we're only seeing numbers increasing. I like to think it's because I do prevention education and I'm getting more and more reports for kids, but we see of this trend of we're probably going to be serving 500 kids in 2024. And that is a lot of kids that are experiencing trauma, a lot of kids that are experiencing abuse. So my job is to prevent my coworkers out of a job. Because I don't want kids to come to Kids Center. I want our community to be a space where it is prevention focused. So we do Darkness to Light. I do what's called Safety Net. It's an internet safety training. It's a big hot button topic right now, especially with teenagers and middle schoolers. I have a training for an adult. I have a training for kids. I can go into schools and go K through 12 and give information and best practices. We do one for ages and stages of childhood development. A prevention strategy is that a parent understands how a child develops. Because if they don't understand that process and that journey, it actually becomes a stressor on them. When a parent experiences a stressor, they have an increase in their potential to be a perpetrator against their own child of abuse and neglect. And so we know it's really important for them to understand a childhood's development. And then lastly, we have one that's called Child Abuse Signs, Symptoms, and Prevention. A very long name. It's basically just a large overview of prevention strategies and the types of abuse that we see. So we exist so that we don't have to exist later on. That is our goal. We don't want to be here 30 years down the road. We don't want to celebrate another 30 years. We want to get to a space where our communities, we cover Jefferson, Deschutes, and Crook, and then we also cover Sherman, Wheeler, and Harney. We like to go big. But we want those communities to feel safe for kids, where kids can have a thriving childhood, and they don't have to worry about this type of such a serious subject on their shoulders. That as adults in the community, we take care of it. We make sure policies are in place. We make sure a building is set up with child protection in mind. That is our ultimate goal. That was a lot of information, but I would definitely wanted to leave time for any questions or anything that you all have comments for. So I kind of open the floor to y'all. Yeah.
I'll give you an easy one. What's your experience with child care centers or facilities like that? Is that a possible abuse problem, or is it avoiding abuse?
It's yes and.
Okay.
Because no organization is exempt from this type of situation that they can potentially have kids experience. Our job is to connect with those child care centers and say, hey, not only train staff, let's take a look at your policies. And let's make sure your policies are up to speed and that everyone gets these policies. Let's do a walk around the building and see where are the blind spots. And so that's kind of the services that we provide as a prevention department, of connecting and making sure that they know that they have support so that they don't have to wait for something to happen for them to have policies in place. So we do try to kind of step ahead of it. We understand that situations have happened, and usually that's when we get the phone call instead of us reaching out to them.
Thank you.
Yeah?
I was going to ask about referrals from law enforcement, how that works, the law enforcement.
Yeah.
referrals.
So in order for law enforcement to make a referral, typically what happens is that a RP, or the reporting person, connects and calls law enforcement. That can be through a 911 call, or that can be through like the non-emergency dispatch call. And they will explain a situation that they are concerned about or that they witnessed, and the law enforcement agency will then determine whether or not they go out to that site. Typically, they're going to make a visit to that site or to wherever the incident is happening a lot quicker than the DHS, because when you call DHS, that child abuse hotline, it is more intense of a screening because they have a lot of questions that they want to walk you through. So yeah, if law enforcement is referring out, it's because someone reported to them, they went to that house, they went to that site, they determined and had a conversation with that kiddo, and they're like, you know what, this is something that's better handled at Kids Center. It's a lot more child focused, it's a lot more trauma informed, and everything gets recorded and transcribed for that investigation. Yeah. Other questions? I know, it's such a happy topic.
Talk about your, Michelle and I were involved with some of those trainings for internet safety for kids and adults.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was done by a police officer, if I'm not mistaken, or our training, but
Okay.
There was certainly an adult version, and then there was a kid version.
Yeah.
And can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Safety Net for Adults is a 2-hour program, and we cover everything from hackers and scams, social media, online gaming, cyberbullying, inappropriate posts, and online predator. It's a really happy one. But these are real instances that we know that our kids are facing. And because we all grew up with no internet, it's very foreign to us. Knowing best practices, knowing what's recommended is something that we truly have to dig in and research about, and not have it come kind of just like common sense. Some of it is, but it's not necessarily always something that we think about, especially if we didn't grow up with it. And so for the adults, it's kind of getting them on the same page of like, okay, here are the pitfalls, but then here's how to have conversations, here's how to put up guardrails, here's how to create a plan for internet usage and device usage within your home. For the kids, it's almost the opposite, because they grew up with a phone in their hand. They know how to open and do all the things on the apps by the time they're 3 years old, which is insane, and it's a little bit scary. But instead, what we do with them is help them understand why their parents are putting restrictions and boundaries and limitations on what they are using and experiencing online. And it's helping them to understand that their brain is wired in such a way that if they're simply looking at a screen versus an interaction that they're having with a person, different parts of their brain are getting engaged. The risk factor of danger when I'm with another person is a lot higher in my brain than if I'm staring at a screen. And so it's helping them to understand simply because you don't feel like there's risk doesn't mean that there's risk involved. And it's getting them to that spot of understanding it. And yes, we go over the laws, and yes, we go over kind of the external aspects, but it's really about building a child that feels safe while they're online, but they're also ethical while they're online, and being a good digital citizen. What does that mean? So it's helping them to understand that.
Remember our biggest argument was when kids could have Snapchat.
Oh, Snapchat.
And I was always no. But
I don't like Snapchat.
I lost that battle.
What's really interesting about Snapchat is that kids use it as their texting app. Like, that's what they use. And I've had multiple conversations about why. And it's because of convenience, because the camera automatically opens in Snapchat, that app, as opposed to your texting app. And so all they have to do, if someone is messaging them, what are you doing? They open it, take a photo, send it, and it doesn't save, so they save memory on their phone. It's convenience, and then the ability that they think that it disappears. Yeah.
It's about it disappearing. It's not about anything else. They don't want any record of the conversations and pictures they're sending to each other.
Yeah, the disappearance is the draw of why they chose to use that as texting in the first place. Yeah. So Snapchat has always been.
And that's why it's dangerous as a parent if you don't know. If you don't know what they're saying to each other.
Yes.
That is why it's a concern in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of monitoring software comes into play, because you can either limit, not even have Snapchat. You can, on some of them, you can see exactly what is sent because it does monitor it that closely. So it's about pairing with the tools that you have in a monitoring software, but explaining why you're doing it. If there's no rationale being explained, they're not going to care, and they're going to find as many loopholes and workarounds as they possibly can. They're frighteningly good at technology and finding ways around it, unfortunately.
I agree.
Yeah. And so that's been probably our most popular training for the past 2 years. We partnered with Ben Lapine Schools to bring them parent nights, and they were very well attended, and we're trying to see like what else can we do within this realm of internet safety.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of agencies in the county that deal with youngsters in various capacities. What kind of interfacing do you do with those different organizations?
Yeah, great question. So specifically for Kids Center, we connect them usually because they are services that a family will need. So the Giving Plate, or connecting them to Neighbor Impact because they need assistance with housing. So we kind of see ourselves as like, okay, here we have the situation with the family. What do they need? Yes, they're dealing with this situation, and that has caused other things to go sideways in their life. So who can we connect them with so that that stressor is relieved? And that's how we interface a lot with different organizations. Specifically within prevention, we often partner with organizations like Mountain Star. We connect with organizations that are preventative in nature, usually in April because that's National Child Abuse Prevention Month, to provide kind of a one-stop shop for parents or adults that want to know what they can do to further prevent and protect their kids. So yeah, we do a lot of interfacing with a bunch of different organizations simply because their services are what our clients need.
I saw in Gil's director letter that there's a change of venue for the Cork and Barrel, is that right?
Yes, so way back in the day when it first started, it was at Tetherow, and then we outgrew Tetherow, and it went to Broken Top, and it was on the driving range under a big tent. And then COVID. And then that shifted us over to the convention center at the River House. And then just this last July, we were back out in the tent on the athletic field at COCC. And that's where we're going to be for the next 2 years. So we're really excited to get back outside. That was kind of the vibe and the environment that we really enjoyed bringing that event to life. So for those that don't know, Cork and Barrel is our largest fundraiser that we put on for Kids Center. It raises about 20% of our annual operating budget, and it's a 3-day food and wine event. And every year we have a different wine region that we host that comes in, provides the wine for the wine tasting and auctions and things like that.
Yeah, we were unable to attend this last year, but it's always been a great event.
I like working it.
Yeah,
That's a plus.
absolutely. And I know Gil personally. He was in one of our leadership classes too.
Oh, yeah.
As well too.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
Yeah, he's good guy. Yeah.
I apologize if you said this, but are you just in Central Oregon, or are there organizations like you other places?
Yeah, so a Children's Advocacy Center, there's almost 1,000 of us nationwide. And so we really got started in the late 80s, early 90s. And there is, I want to say now, 17 in the state of Oregon. So within Oregon, we have the largest service area just because we're on this side of the Cascades. But yeah, so there's a whole network of us across the nation.
But are you independent here? Like your own 501c3?
Yep, we're our own 501c3. We just have that governing body of the National Children's Alliance that governs all the CACs in the country.
About the only vulnerable children I haven't heard you mention are the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Have you any comments about what you have to deal with there?
Yeah, so because we do interface with other organizations, we do work with like J Bar J, we work with Grandma's House, we work with The Loft, and then we also work really closely with FAN. So FAN is usually, and that's the Family Access Network, and FAN is usually the one that kind of keys in about, oh, we have a kid that is homeless, or Neighbor Impact is another one. So when we receive those referrals, oftentimes it's a child that is coming with a DHS caseworker and not a parent or a guardian.
Oh.
And so we assist in however we can, but oftentimes if they're with that caseworker, they're the ones that are kind of working on the shelter aspect of things. Mm-hmm. But we do have conversations with all those different organizations, knowing that individuals that are homeless are at an increased risk to experience abuse and neglect. Maybe not at the hands of family members, but at the hands of other individuals, even if they kind of know them.
Let's say I observed something that was, I'm not sure if it's reportable or not, because it's mandatory reporting for a lot of people.
Right.
Could one call Kids Center and talk about it and get advice on next steps?
100%. So depending on the situation that you are witnessing or know about, you would either talk to the advocate, the therapist of the day, or you can even talk to myself. And then we could hear what's going on, walk you through and say, you know what, this is probably something that needs to be reported. Do you want me to do it with you? And we can offer that aspect as well. Because sometimes reporting is really traumatizing in and of itself, just the process of knowing what you're doing and what's happening in that kid's life potentially. So we definitely want to support in that process as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just want to say a great organization. I'm glad we have it, and I'm glad that the community supports you because it's one of the most important organizations we have.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
How many employees?
We have currently 32.
Total budget?
Our total budget, I think this last year's, they're gonna kill me. 3.4 million annual. Hey.
And I just got my open house email invitation for you guys.
Oh, right on, yeah. Open house tomorrow, 2 to 6. We love to see you come.
And we have a little gift for you, Rachel. Thank you so much for all you do. This is from a local artisan, it's a Kiwanis pen. So, yeah. And guys, if you are available, just let's go to that open house tomorrow and really support. And so we'll take another picture.
This one, Michelle's responsible to be in all the pictures.
Yeah. You only have 3 weeks of me in the pictures. Then Ron is going to be in the pictures. Thank you
so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. In honor of Rachel and Kids Center, guys, safety and security don't just happen. They are the result of collective consensus and public investment. We owe our children, the most vulnerable citizens in our society, a life free of violence and fear. Anyone? Nelson Mandela. And with that, we are adjourned.